Hello.
Oh, we're recording.
We are. Yeah, the beeper thing didn't go off because I turned off the sound.
Sweet.
Hi, I'm Adam.
Fletch.
And we are.
BSI Comics VODCAST.
And we're going to.
VODCAST.
I was going to say talk like this for the rest of that, but we're not. Because clearly we're not in sync. So, before we get started, I wanted to reach out to anyone who's watching this in the Louisiana area. Did I just say area?
Area.
The area.
The greater New Orleans area.
Well, a little further than the greater New Orleans area. Maybe the Baton Rouge area. Anyway, we need a little help. We're trying to get together a drive, a charity drive. We would like, if anyone out there has any connections to any Louisiana flood relief organizations, please contact us, Adam at bsicomics.com. You can actually tweet at BSI Comics. That's not really...
Shoot us a message on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm Fletch at bsicomics.com.
Facebook's probably the fastest way.
Yeah, Facebook message.
We'd really appreciate it. We're not announcing the details just yet because we don't have everything together. Basically, we need people who know... we need a drop-off point for the charity drop that we do. So if you know anyone who knows anything, maybe if you work at like one of the television stations or something like that, maybe you have some information. We're still searching ourselves, but we really appreciate it. And we're trying to get on this like stat.
Right on.
So with that in mind, I guess we'll move on. There's not a lot of news this week. Like we've been searching. There is some decent X-Men news.
Yep. Won't be out for a while, but the new the after IVX universe is starting to shape up a little
there's
bit.
Two names for it. There's Resurrection and Insurrection, and I'm kind of confused as to what the difference is. But I think they're both, as near as I can tell, they're both like they're not. It's not there's not a Resurrection miniseries. I think it's an overarching title like Marvel Now or whatever.
It's Fallout kind of.
Right. So and it's going to be a bunch of books post Inhumans versus X-Men, which starts this week, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But yeah, so it's basically the same sort of setup that they did post Avengers versus X-Men. Like there's going to be a book called X-Humans. I'm guessing that's going to be a book where the X-Men, the Inhumans, form a team to sort of work out their policies, or maybe it might be like what was that book where the Avengers, what was it, A plus X, where basically they weren't a team,
but they were forced to work together.
Yeah, like they were just stories where like, hey, let's hang out.
Like an 80s buddy cop movie.
Yes, and it sold about as well as some of those. So, but there's some cool stuff coming out of X-Men, or at least seemingly cool. We haven't read it yet.
Right.
We don't know for sure. But at least it seems like they have kind of a direction finally for X-Men.
And spoiler, they're not killing off the X-Men. Whoever, I need to say I told you so, I don't know. I'll just broadly say that.
I don't want to get into that. But, so we found out a few details. We know what's going on with the X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold teams, which of course harkens back to the original like X-Men expansion where they turned into like 5 different teams. So X-Men Gold is going to be a more early Claremont series. The team's going to be led by Kitty Pryde, which is interesting because the team consists of Kitty Pryde, Storm, who's of course the second most popular X-Men leader of all time. First for some people, I guess it depends on what generation you came from. But so Storm's kind of taking a back seat, which is interesting. There's going to be Old Man Logan taking the Wolverine spot. Rachel Gray is coming back, which is interesting. She hasn't been seen much in the X-Men universe. Nightcrawler. There's a lot of Night characters in comics. Nightcrawler and Colossus.
Pretty classic X-Men lineup.
Right. And I have seen some complaints about it that it's not very fresh. You know, like bring back, but...
You get the people that are like, oh, why do they keep doing this new stuff? Just go with what works. Then you go with what works, and you're like, man, we need something fresh. There's no pleasing everyone.
No, can't please everybody. But interesting lineup. I'm very intrigued by the fact that Kitty Pryde's leading. Kitty Pryde's actually been in the Guardians of the Galaxy books for the last couple of years.
Mm.
Well, no, not I guess a year.
At
it's hard to
least a
keep
year.
track. Now that they do the double shipping stuff all over the place, it's hard for us as comics retailers to keep track of like how long it's been, because we used to be pretty easy.
Right.
Like, oh, that comics event was 2 years ago, but now there's like 5 events per year.
Relaunches.
Yeah, it's difficult. Sorry. So the other team, X-Men Blue.
More the young, the fresh.
I guess you could call it that. Basically, they played around with the all-new X-Men team, which is the team of X-Men from the past that they brought to the future that, spoiler alert, is probably going to end up in the long run being an alternate universe X-Men team because it doesn't really make any sense, but that's neither here nor there. But that team that Brian Bendis did like the Back to the Future thing with, they've kind of played around with it. Some team members had left. They brought in the Kid Apocalypse, whatever his name was. They brought in Laura Martin, the new Wolverine.
Young Cyclops.
Well, Young Cyclops was already part of the team.
Right.
But,
okay.
But so some of those characters came in, but they're relaunching it. So now it's just going to be that team, the original 5 X-Men from the time displaced past that Brian Bendis started us on. It was a really confusing discussion, but you get the point. So those are going to be the 2 main X-Men teams, and it's interesting. We don't we've gotten a few covers. The X-Men Blue with the all new X-Men is an Art Adams cover, always a fan favorite.
Guggenheim's writing.
I think Cullen Bunn's writing X-Men Gold, if I remember right. Other interesting thing about X-Men Blue, much like the Kitty Pryde thing, is that Cyclops will not be leading this team. Jean Grey is going to take a huge step forward, which is interesting. Also, since she's one of the characters that's going to get her own book. There's going to be a new Jean Grey series written by Dennis Hopeless. That's apparently, he describes it as she's going to go through the trials of Hercules, essentially, metaphorically. She finds out that the Phoenix is coming back in some form to destroy the world, and she is the only person who can do it, so she's got to do a Rocky montage. She's got to train, fighting Tiger, that sort of thing, so that she can go pound for pound, round for round with the Phoenix.
Conquer the Phoenix again.
Eye of the Phoenix, yeah. I don't know.
We should make that happen.
Okay. We could.
Yeah.
We could. You could. I couldn't. But anyway, so interesting. There's also going to be an Iceman book that I guess is focused on the younger one.
Oh, yeah, that's what it looked like. Well, it was kind of a montage.
It's hard to tell because now that they've decided, oh, well, the original Iceman's gay now, too, for no reason. Now there's no differentiation between the two because they look.
Maybe it'll be like an
similar.
80s buddy cop movie with the 2 Icemans having to work together.
Got a really inappropriate joke to go with that, but I'm gonna move along because we're decent men trying to start a charity. Anyway, but a lot of interesting. Maybe the most interesting book to me is that they announced that Generation X is coming back, which is kind of odd because. Yeah, Generation X is obviously an X-Men thing, but the original Generation X came out when there was an actual subset of the population referred to
Mountain Dew.
Well, referred to specifically as Generation X. So
Right.
It's kind of an interesting anachronism. But what I find interesting about it is that the concept of the book is going to be that there are plenty of mutants out there that don't. Like, they have special abilities.
But they're not necessarily combat abilities.
Right, and the example given in the article I was reading was Cypher.
Like, one guy can file books really good. He works at the library.
Right. So, basically, Jubilee's starting this team.
Jubilee has combat powers.
Well, but she's going to be a teacher.
She work at Disney and do fireworks.
Oh, I got that joke. It wasn't good, though. So, we're going to move on. God damn it, why'd you, and then alright, anyway, so, Jubilee
Gonna be a teacher.
is gonna be a teacher. You wanna?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Jubilee's gonna be a teacher. The new school is going to be somewhere in Central Park. I don't know how that works because I've been to Central Park. They don't really build things.
Underneath?
Maybe so. Like, I don't know where you get a permit to build underneath Central Park, but whatever. It's going to be the Xavier Institute again. And she's going to teach these kids, I guess, to sort of like how to live when you're like a weird-looking mutant with no particularly useful powers, or at least none that are applicable to changing the world.
About them finding their place in the world?
Yeah. It sounds like it. I like this concept. I don't know how many people are going to go for it.
I don't know how it's going to translate, but in theory, it sounds pretty interesting.
I like that they're trying something different,
mm-hmm.
And, you saw Grant Morrison did it a little bit. He didn't have like a separate book for it, but they had
the X-Men.
Wait, what?
The Grant Morrison X-Men run?
Yeah.
With all the weird, like the guy with the
He had the guy with the star for a brain that sort of turned into Magneto. Wasn't really clear, but he had his own little team of weirdos that just couldn't do anything. They had Beak. He didn't have any powers. He just was like half chicken, So we've seen that a little bit before, but this is the first time there's been a separate book where they really explored what
Maybe
it's
they'll
like.
bring some of those guys in.
Maybe so. I can do without Beak, but
he just wakes everybody up in the morning.
So, other things. Got something a little unpleasant to talk about.
Unpleasant?
Yeah.
What?
So, welcome to the age where politics infects everything. We try not to talk about politics too much on here. I think we've sort of addressed it only in relation to how it affects the comics community, because that's what this is. So, beloved artist Greg Capullo.
Oh, you want to talk about this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's important to talk about. Been around for, 20 years? I think most people think he's a pretty awesome guy.
Pretty recognizable name.
Yeah. Matt Hawkins, who I believe is an editor over at Image, I think, went on Twitter and asked how comics pros feel about expressing their politics in public.
Just anything like social, like politics, race, sexuality, anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Or just in general,
for putting your beliefs out there for other people.
Right. So Greg Capullo responded and said, generally don't like to do it. I'm a comics artist. I like to keep all that stuff out of the public eye because people come to me for, and I'm paraphrasing here, of course,
right.
And I'm going to be paraphrasing both sides of this to be clear. Basically said, I don't want to do that. Comics are a form of escapism. That's my job.
People come to comics to escape all the negativity and the harassment.
And literally to escape politics often.
Right.
Which isn't to say that there's no place for politics in comics.
Absolutely there's a place for it. But, some people want to come read Batman and they don't care who Batman wants to vote for or whoever's writing Batman thinks you should vote for and wants to force it on you.
Which is my policy. I'll give you an example of 3 different creators, 2 on one side of the political spectrum and 1 on the other. Chuck Dixon is well known for being an outspoken right-wing guy.
Right.
Mark Waid and Peter David, also known for being outspoken on the left. I've never read a comic from any of these 3 gentlemen, all of whom are immensely talented.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider them, and in particular Mark Waid and Peter David, for me personally, but I consider them, the 3 of them, to be among the best comics writers out there, and have been for pretty much our entire lives. Never once been insulted by a comic written by any of them. They talk about their politics openly. I have a policy. I don't follow Mark Waid or Peter David online because I don't really need to know what they think about those things, but I respect the fact that they have those beliefs, and I respect more the fact that they respect me and you as a reader,
Not forcing it down our throat.
Exactly, because that's not what I go to them for. So basically that's what Capullo was saying, that's not, I'm a
right.
comic book artist. Like, I don't need to do this online. And then some random woman responded and said something to the effect of, you have that luxury because you're white. Or,
You're
I'm sorry,
a
a white guy.
male. White male.
And then went on some sort of rant about how, you know,
he has the luxury of being able to make the choice to be back from that and not take a stance on it.
And that black creators don't have that luxury.
Or female creators.
Yeah, but she was mostly focusing on black creators. Not even, by the way, comics community, particularly artists, people don't recognize this, but it's fairly diverse. There's a lot of Asians and a lot of Hispanics drawing comics, mostly for economic reasons, to be honest with you. It's much cheaper to go to the Philippines or to Mexico and other such places and get an artist.
Italy, there's a lot of great artists out of Italy. I mean, it's all over.
Very, very diverse. That's one thing that, like, yes, there's not a whole lot of female artists in comics, but as I think we've discussed on the show, that's demographics. You know, if the majority of comics fans are white males, that's kind of going to be who's most interested in doing work in comics.
Right.
But again, in the art community, the artists specifically, it's actually not like that. It's actually, again, incredibly
Look
diverse.
at our local group. I mean, we're incredibly diverse. There's every creed, color, everything.
Mm-hmm. You know, I never really understood what the word creed meant. I mean, aside from Apollo, you know.
Anyway.
What's the new guy? Michael B. Jordan?
Tommy Gunn.
No, the Michael B. Jordan Creed.
I don't know.
Augustus Creed. I don't know. Anyway, Victor Creed. There we go.
All right.
So basically, this woman goes on this rant about black creators don't have the luxury of staying out of politics, which isn't true.
It just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, he was being attacked basically for no reason whatsoever.
And there was a lot of, like, this is straight white males trying to suppress. You know, now I will say, slightly in the defense of this woman, not really in defense of her, but Capullo kind of took the bait because he easily could have just went on with it because it started out insulting but mild.
Right. And
then it kind of spun out of control. But the thing is, no matter what your opinion is on how... And again, it's weird that we're going with specifically black creators because there are creators of other nationalities and ethnicities and genders. But regardless of how you feel about how they're treated in the industry, and the industry is growing, thankfully. It is changing. Not at the speed that people want you to think it is, but it is changing, and we see that every day at a comic shop.
Absolutely so it is.
But she's 100% wrong. And Capullo is right. As I was saying earlier, I'm fine with the fact that the creators of these comics feel differently than me. And if they're doing a creator-owned series, to be completely clear, I have no problem with someone like favorite writer Warren Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
If he does a creator-owned series that's completely political, whether I agree with it or not, that is his right. When he's working on a Marvel comic or a DC comic, no. You know, I don't have a problem with creators expressing it in their personal life, but for someone to say that it's not okay for a white creator to just say, I like to keep my politics out of it. What is the argument there? Like, what if his politics are opposite hers?
You know what? We're all different. We all have different views. The sooner we can all just accept people for who they are and not attack them, the better off we'll be. I know that's asking a lot of everyone.
I don't think so. I think it's not asking a lot to say, this is comics. And it never used to be like this. Look, when I was a kid, there were far more straight white males reading comics than anything else. It's not even in the ballpark. It's, as I said, it's growing different now. It's changing slightly, slowly. But even then, I had friends who were black or Asian or what have you. I didn't know any girls that read comics at the time, but, you know, we never had these discussions. I don't remember my black friend in our group saying, there's too many white guys making comics. Now, maybe he felt differently, I don't know, but he never seemed to have a problem with it. He read as many comics.
Just talking about, you know, like, what's Spider-Man going to do next time, you know?
And the thing is, like, I can't judge because I don't know the woman who had this, but so much of me wonders when I see things like this, does that woman really read comics? Or is she just somebody who kind of
I believe she was a creator.
Was she?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, well, good for her. I've never heard of her, but all right, cool, fair enough. But I feel like a lot of the people that start these sort of arguments don't really have that much to do with.
I mean, I think anybody that comes in our store on a regular or talks to me knows that I'm always preaching just, give someone the benefit of the doubt. So what? You have a differing opinion. We all have differing opinions. That doesn't mean we can't get along and enjoy the same stuff. There was no reason to call people out. Mm-hmm. If somebody posts something online and you disagree with it, move on.
So, sad situation. Greg Capullo seems like a nice guy. Certainly not a racist. It was weird that he was called that. But anyway, so moving on to something more fun. Do you watch the DC CW shows? Not at all. Have you ever seen any of them? You just don't like them?
Not for me.
Okay. I am actually a huge fan of it. I think that unlike the Warner Brothers film people, the people with the CW get it.
I will say that one thing I do like about the universe is the cohesiveness. They all are aware of what's going on in each other's stuff, and you can take someone and put it in different shows, and it all makes sense. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel out of place
to some degree or another. Right. They've made a few mistakes that aren't worth getting into. So the big thing this week has been, and it's the last episode's dropping. Well, tonight when this is being recorded, is they're having a huge crossover between the 4 CW. DC shows called Heroes vs. Aliens, which is a horrible name. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I thought A-Force was bad.
I think Heroes vs. Aliens is better than A-Force, but neither here nor there. Sounds horrible. I gotta tell you, I'm blown away by it.
Okay. Really,
really excited. It starts off kind of weak because so the lead-in is that Supergirl is still in her own universe. She's in a different dimension. So the Supergirl tie-in, you don't even really need to watch. It's just there, so more people will start watching Supergirl, which I'm not a fan of. I like Melissa Benoist. She's really awesome, but the show is not their best work. But The Flash sort of starts it off, and then it goes to Arrow, and then tonight, The Legends of Tomorrow. And I gotta say, I'm just so blown away by it. It stars a classic DC alien race called the Dominators, and they look a lot like the comics.
I think they march in the Mardi Gras parades.
They look a lot like the comics.
That's a local joke.
Yeah. They have, there's a reference to the Hall of Justice from the old cartoon, and it's cheesy. Make no mistake. It's actually hammier than the shows normally are, but it works.
Sometimes cheesy's not a bad thing, though.
Yeah, it's just so much fun, and I gotta say, I got a thrill out of seeing Melissa Benoist, because the one thing that the Arrowverse, as they call it, doesn't have is any characters with the power to fly. That sort of seems to be unique to the Supergirl universe. And so they're all kind of like blown away by, look, oh my God, like this cool, like super, like more powerful than a locomotive. They actually mention it. People don't really call those locomotives anymore. That's weird. But it's really, really fun. And for those of you out there who maybe aren't as interested in it or haven't been in the past, or those of you who might have lapsed or just never got around to checking it out, I highly recommend it. It might be a little bit confusing, not much, but a little bit confusing if you've never seen it before, but so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Right on.
So I guess that's about it, except for our recommendations.
We got some recommendations. There's actually been some pretty good stuff coming out over the last couple of weeks.
This week's been a little bit slow.
Pretty slow news, pretty slow week being a 5th week. Towards the end of the year, a little slow. But we are breaking into a couple events, and there are some pretty good books that have just come out in trade and or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. In fact, there were a couple I could have chosen from. Mm-hmm. The one I did choose, I chose because it's not something normally I would have any interest in reading.
I was blown away that he liked this book.
Well, as an intro, I think most people are probably aware that there was a Death of X miniseries that came out that explained what happened to the X-Men in the jump between whatever. There's so many events. I can't keep track.
And to be fair, a lot of people shied away from it because the art was lacking a little bit on it. Honestly.
It was, I hate to call anybody out, but the colorist was horrible.
However, once you kind of like slosh through that, it turned out to be a pretty cool story. We don't want to get any spoilers.
Well, it's by two of the best writers that Marvel has right now. It's Charles Soule, I think, was the head chair, and then Jeff Lemire, I guess, was helping them plot or something like that. I don't know how they broke it up. But Soule and Lemire are quality names if you're reading a comic. So
and this track's pretty far back, too, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of a series that unfortunately ended up being canceled way too soon, which was the She-Hulk series that Charles Soule did.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. If you want to go look up the trades, I don't know if we have any. We can probably order some if you're in the area. I can't recommend the She-Hulk series enough, but that's not what I'm recommending today. So, out of Death of X, we're going into IVX, Inhuman vs. X-Men, which, as someone who is well known for hating Avengers vs. X-Men, it's one of the worst series I've ever read.
And most crossovers.
No, I like quite a few.
Most crossovers in the last 5 years.
I have a hard time keeping track of them. I couldn't actually sit here and tell you whether you're right or not.
All right.
In any case, why? Because I don't like Civil War II?
No.
Anyway, so which will be ending this month.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well,
so
maybe.
Inhumans vs. X-Men sounded horrible to me, but it's out. I really like the artist, Kenneth Rocafort, and I love Charles Soule and Jeff Lemire, as I mentioned, so I figured, why not try it? And I did, and I gotta say, Inhumans vs. X-Men #0 is awesome.
Also, it's a zero issue, which typically don't do a whole lot, They're mostly like filler. That's a solid read.
This is the first issue as far. I mean, I can see why they would have this as a zero issue. This makes far more sense in the way they did Civil War II, which confused a lot of readers and turned off a lot of potential customers. But this one, because this is set up, it's kind of showing what's been going on, because Emma Frost has been missing from the X-Men universe for several months now, and we didn't see her again until
Might get into a little
Death of
spoiler.
X.
I don't know if you want to.
Oh, I'm not going to discuss
Okay.
what she's been doing if you haven't read Death of X. I don't think you need to read Death of X to understand this, though. They kind of explain.
Yeah, they kind of bring you up to speed with this. And
beautiful art, shows basically the gathering of the two sides and why they're going to be fighting. There was a solid reason for this. This is a far more well thought out series than Avengers vs. X-Men. I don't know how the first issue is going to be. I don't know if I'm going to like the series in general. But if you have any interest in it, and if you've had any interest in seeing the X-Men and just kind of not digging the recent books, check this one out.
It's also pretty meaty. I mean, I know I use that sometimes with the Captain America books. I don't like to use the term wordy, because wordy usually means I'm disinterested, but that's a good solid read. You're going to get your money's worth out of that.
I think what you're saying is, it doesn't feel like you just spent $4 and it took 3 seconds.
It's substantial. You actually have to sit down and read it.
So, yeah.
I actually picked 2 books.
Were we allowed to do that?
I don't care. One of my favorite characters, Venom, is back with a new series. Pretty awesome. Classic Venom's back. He's kind of the, I guess you use anti-hero, but he's more of just a bad guy.
It's dependent on the character.
Right. So he's got a new host. I don't want to get into it, spoilers too much, but the new host is doing some not so great things with a group of guys. It kind of goes sour. The symbiote seeks him out, jumps in there, and he does this Venom thing. As far as the #1 issue, like we said with that 0 issue, this is about as good of a setup issue as you can get on a #1 without feeling like, okay, here we go.
So you feel like, because my complaint for a couple of the recent books that I've recommended was that it felt like half an issue when it should have been like a double-sized first issue. You don't feel like that for this one?
No, I don't feel like that at all. You get everything you need to know about the new character. You can pretty much read this and decide whether or not this is going to be a book for you. I know a lot of Spider-Man Venom fans were kind of turned off at the recent stuff with the Venom Space Knight or even the Agent Venom stuff because it's not the...
I liked all that stuff.
A lot of people like classic, big, hulking, slimy-tongued Venom.
Yeah.
He's back in here. This is awesome. If that's what you're looking for, check this out.
Also to mention, the artist on it, Gerardo Sandoval, is somebody that I've felt like is going to be a great artist someday, but kind of needs to like work things out and sort of learn how to tone it down. But the nature of his art, even though he's still a little farther down the line than I'd like, but the nature of his art works very well for a character like Venom.
Oh, it's solid. There's some really good panel layout with like the webbing, the Venom, symbiote webbing. It's good stuff.
So check that out.
Definitely
What's your second book?
My second book is a trade that I know everyone's.
Oh, come on.
Everyone's heard me praise.
You can keep going.
But you can actually finally read it. We were out of the #1 issues, so you couldn't get the whole story. But the new Moon Knight series is available in trade. It's awesome. It takes everything about Moon Knight that you may have known before and kind of brings that forward. All the different personalities. When he transforms, from his different personalities, there's a different artist for each personality in his head. It's pretty cool. Francisco Francavilla, James Stokoe. It's a mind trip. It's really awesome. I recommend this to pretty much everybody. When they come in, they say, there's no good current books out. I give them this.
I'm almost rooting for the series to get canceled just so I'll shut up about it.
He still won't read it. So we got Moon Knight. Check it out.
Well, since you recommended 2 books, I'm going to recommend a second book. Because while I was waiting for you to close up the shop, because we do this in store and we can't have customers running around while we're recording, I sat down and read a book that, this is the second issue. The first issue, I flipped through and the art was really cool, but I just didn't have a chance to sit down and read it, which unfortunately happens when you work in a comic shop. There's so much getting thrown at us. Sometimes it's hard to just sit down, even with important books. Mm-hmm. Trinity. So Francis Manapul is doing a book that's basically replacing the 2 Batman vs. Superman, or Batman Superman,
and
Superman Wonder Woman,
and Wonder Woman Batman.
And they're combining it into a book called Trinity. Full disclosure, we're not really supposed to say stuff like this, but the truth is, I'm not a fan of what DC's been doing with the Justice League lately. It's not a book for me.
It's just what we're talking about. Everyone has different opinions. You're allowed to have a different opinion.
But I kind of feel like, just like they did with Superman in the beginning of New 52, it's a bit of a misstep. If you're looking for a solid Justice League book, there's no better.
3/5 of a Justice League book.
Look, if you got Superman, Batman, and Wonder, they used to call Superman and Batman the 2-man Justice League. If you got Wonder Woman too, there's literally nothing else you need. Like, those are the 3 Justice League members that you care about. And Francis Manapul, I don't know if he's the best artist in comics right now. He's up there. He turns in some solid work.
Probably the best thing they got going on over there at Big Blue.
And the coolest thing about it is, Manapul's doing this by himself.
If you look at the corner right there, it just says Manapul.
Right. Now, when I say by himself, I'm saying he's writing it, he's drawing it, and he's coloring it. Obviously, there's plenty of others, letters and stuff like that. I don't want to discredit any of those people, but that is a huge job for someone to do monthly. And so far, it's been monthly. I don't know how long he'll be doing this by himself.
Totally okay with that book coming out monthly. Like, DC can pump the brakes a little bit.
I love that.
And just give us solid books monthly, and I'm plenty okay with that.
So, can't recommend Trinity enough. You might have to, like, if you're here, I don't know if we have any issues. Issue #1 sitting back
Trinities
there.
aren't a problem.
So definitely check it out. If you've been looking for Justice League fix and you're just not digging the Brian Hitch version like me, all about it. So I guess that's about it. Do we have? So next weekend, Saturday, December 10th, I believe, will be Super Saturday here.
We're making ornaments, Shrinky Dink Christmas ornaments. It's pretty cool. It's one of our most popular events.
It's open to all ages. We typically have families come in, but if you're a grown adult and you're just looking for some like comic book themed Christmas ornaments to hang from your Christmas tree, come on down. It's BSI Comics in Metairie.
Don't forget to let us know if you have any leads on Flood Relief charity help.
Yeah, I mean, it's the season to give, regardless of what your religion is, what your race or creed or Apollo creed is. It's the season to give, so if you can help us do that, we would appreciate it. Thank you very much, and read more comics?
Yeah, read more comics.
Okay, bye.